Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon. I am one of the Career Readiness Consultants at the Kent Intermediate School District in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I'm really excited to have Austin Willis today. He is a recruiter at Spectrum Health here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so we're going to have a great conversation to help young people learn about what this career is about and help you understand just some of the things that are out there so that you can make a good decision by the time you graduate. At least get headed in a good direction. You don't have to have it all figured out. So welcome, Austin. Thank you for making time to be here with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So before I get into your personal story, well, I think I actually like to start with this question. You know, when you were back in high school, did you think you'd grow up to be a recruiter? Did you even know what that meant at the time? Share a little bit of your early career path.
That's a great question. So in high school, honestly, I had no clue what I wanted to do. My main goal was really just graduating high school and kind of figuring out what I wanted to do from there. So I essentially started off at Oakland University. I took my first year there, and I kind of just jumped into the role of finance and trying to major in that area because that was pretty much what I knew from family and things of that nature. And after the first semester, kind of realized it wasn't for me. So I switched over to occupational therapy, which is something that I really got a chance to really develop a love for from helping my grandmother, and really, trying to understand the body and things of that nature. And when I started taking science classes, I realized that was not the route for me. So pulled back and really assess some things for me personally. I thought about going into the Army. I thought about a lot of different options. And essentially what I thought about doing is going into HR. So this is a field that my mom has been in for the last 30 years. And I've got a chance to go to, events like go to work with your parents day and things of that nature. And I kind of got an opportunity to really learn the ins and outs of the area. And once I really realized that that was what I wanted to do, then I pretty much just took off from there. So kind of had like a restructuring for my setup as well. I'm originally from the east side of the state, so I got opportunity to go, like I said, to Oakland University, and then I transferred to Grand Valley State. So pretty much a new world out here for me, and it gave me opportunity really to just grow, and put myself out there alone, and not have to really depend on parents and things of that nature. So like I said, it really allowed me to grow. And once I got into the HR field, I found out about recruiting, and it's all been there from there.
Good, and we'll definitely, dig into that and what that means. And just for young people on Zoom who may not know, HR means human resources, and we will flesh that out a little bit. So it sounds like when you first went off to college, like you said, there was something about finance that was interesting, or at least what you knew from people around you. You are obviously a helping person if you were interested at all in occupational therapy. So it's kind of fun to see how things evolve. And it's important for young people to hear your story, Austin, because I think there's so much pressure for young people to think they have to have it all figured out. And it sounds like you were pretty intentional about doing some assessment, like, who am I? What do I need to do? Even going to work with your mom, those were very much action steps. And so I guess I want to encourage young people that you have to do those assessments and have those conversations and do experiences to start to figure this out. Yes. So HR was familiar to you because your mom was in that field for 30 years. So when did you transfer then to Grand Valley? After your freshman year or after your sophomore? Oh, freshman year. Okay. And did you transfer to Grand Valley because of their human resource program then?
So I knew that they had a pretty good like business administration platform out here. So it was great for me to, like I said, really get away from the east side of the state and kind of expand without going too far away from home. So just really words of encouragement is to not necessarily just think staying around home. If you're from the east side of the state, don't just think Wayne State, go and really try and expand to other areas such as like Grand Rapids or areas that might only be an hour or two away. So it'll allow you to still come home and, you'll still get that family feel to go see your family for Thanksgiving and things of that nature.
I would love to, just for young people to learn from your experience. Can you give me a couple specifics of how you grew by just stepping out of the east side of the state over to the west side? How did you grow?
Yes. So for me, I got the opportunities to grow in different areas. So really learning responsibilities. I come from a household where a lot of things were put in place for me. So a lot of things weren't necessarily required for me to kind of learn, on my own. So I wanted to put that challenge to myself to be
Mhm.
able to, come out to a new area and really learn, oh, this is a nice restaurant, things of that nature. Cause like I said, I pretty much had a lot of a blueprint for me. And I think that coming out here allowed me to really learn a lot of real world things, as far as really just learning how to navigate through, um, when I go into classrooms, and this is speaking from like a minority perspective. For me, I've always been, in an area where it's not necessarily just all, African Americans or things of that nature. So when I came out here, it was a little bit of a different story. So, um, it allowed me to grow in that aspect to realize that, hey, everyone has opportunities. So I think that was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, it sounds like a big growing of independence and start to make your own
Yes.
choices. And that's the great encouragement to young people that sometimes
Yes.
things can be a little too comfortable at home and we don't
Mhm.
grow up the way that we should. And so it sounds like that experience at Grand Valley really started to stretch you. That's fantastic.
Yes.
And I would like to, certainly talk about uh, a little more about that, but let's focus on a little bit more about recruiting because I want kids to understand, but I do want to hear more of your personal stories, which I'll dig into in a minute. So you went to Grand Valley. Did you get a degree then in business administration? Is that what the official degree was in at the end?
Yes, with the focus in human resource management.
All
Yes.
right. So when you were at Grand Valley, were internships part of your education? Was there any other experiences that you had that really helped with that next step? What would you like the young people to learn from your story and maybe recommendations to them of, during college stuff?
Yes. So I think the biggest thing for me, you touched on it a little bit too, is internships. I really can't stress that enough. That is actually how I landed my first job here at Spectrum Health. I was actually an intern in the human resource department. And I got an opportunity to really network with other individuals. So that is another thing that I really can't stress enough is really networking with other individuals, even if it isn't to just get a job. If you see someone in the hallway, just say hi, how are you doing, things of that nature, because it could bring, a light to everyone around you. So the internship was very great. I actually got a chance to work with a certain team, and once I finished up the internship and finished up school, my previous manager reached out to, the individuals that I'm working with now and said, hey, he was a great worker, and that's kind of how I landed here.
The cha-ching, that's like the best thing for a college kid, right? I mean, to finish your
Yes.
degree and get a job, that's fantastic. I know young people want a little more nuts and bolts. Do you have to find your own internship? Is that something your college helped you with? How do you actually get that first internship?
Yes. So it's really like power of, connections, one, and really just going on. We have something called Handshake that I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys will, start finding out about a little bit later on. But it's really a platform to allow individuals to be able to, go online and see, what exactly positions are open within that area. And once you go from there, then they're really open, especially because they're looking for college students. It is primarily a college platform and for young professionals. So I went on there and really got an opportunity to, kind of look and see what positions were open. And for me, I never really thought about healthcare. But like I said, I really wanted to just continue to take those leaps and bounds, for myself personally to, just try different things. And that is one thing that I would really encourage everyone as well is to just try different things out. If it doesn't work out, you'll still have a lot of time to, try different things. And I think a primary example was when I was at Oakland, just trying different things. And, eventually you'll find, your happy home and go from there and you'll grow.
I find it interesting that you didn't expect yourself in healthcare. So I guess I love that here you had an interest in occupational therapy at the time that didn't end up being the right fit, but that it kind of came full circle where you
Yes.
did the human resources and now that you work for a healthcare organization. That's really cool.
Yes.
Um, and tell me why you like, I mean, do you like the healthcare industry? Are you glad this is the kind of setting that you landed for some of those
Yes.
reasons? Mhm.
Yes, yes. So I think right now, I think we're all really experiencing, the power of healthcare. Just right now, just due to COVID and everything like that, it really shows how important it is. And coming from a recruiting standpoint, for me, it's a really good feel good moment, when I call someone to offer them the position, whether that is, for a nurse position or anything. And, I can just feel their smiles through the phone. So it's a great feeling.
That's got to be very rewarding. So for
Yes.
the young people who may not know, what exactly does a recruiter do? Kind of give us a big picture of what your job is like on a daily basis.
Yes. So primarily I'm working with hiring managers throughout the hospital system. So we do have about 50 different recruiters now. We're expanding pretty big. But I recruit primarily for like radiology services. So if anyone has ever went in for an x-ray or things of that nature, I usually recruit those individuals as well as nurses. So typical day for me would be looking at resumes, and we'll definitely get into that a little bit later, but looking at resumes and partnering with those different nurse managers and individuals, to be able to really see what they're looking for in candidates, as well as doing interviews and partnering with managers to come up with different things such as like pay and when do you want to start, and things of that nature.
So young people are sometimes thinking, well, how will I know how to do that? Is that some of the things you learned during your internship? And then I assume that you have some colleagues who are kind of teaching you as a new employee. I don't know how long you've been there. How long you've been a recruiter there?
So I've been here since January of last year, so about coming up about 2 years now.
Okay, so still relatively new. And so
Yeah.
again, you're learning on the job each day.
Mhm.
Nothing in college can kind of quite prepare you exactly for what you're going to be doing. And I guess I want young people to know that
Mhm.
you can learn, but
Definitely.
it's on the job training. What's your favorite part of those different activities that you just mentioned?
So I think for me, and this is kind of speaking to Spectrum Health's culture, is the collaboration. I think that, like I said, we have about 50 recruiters, and we all pretty much work together. It's not like a battle to see who can get, this person for this certain position and things like that. So we have a lot of different recruiters from different walks of life. So, for me, coming into HR management, my manager actually was going to school to become a teacher. So, really getting a chance to see, that if you go to school for one certain thing, you have the option to kind of change your path and your perspective, and really get into things that you want to do.
Yeah, just so the young people know, it's a term called transferable skills. It's what we do in one setting can be very much transferred to another setting. And I
Mhm.
love awesome that's played out for you, that you don't have to be locked into one thing when you graduate from college, that
Yes.
there's lots of choices to use those skills in different ways. So
Yes.
it sounds like communicating with those hiring managers, and even when you're dealing with a potential hire, communication is really important. It sounds
Mhm.
like. What are some other of those kind of soft skills that we hear about that young people should know? That's why they're teaching it. Teaching it to you in high school because you're going to need this someday. Teamwork.
Yes.
Tell us some of those soft skills that you use.
Yeah, so I think the communication piece is by far the most important. I think that this goes for any position, not necessarily just in recruitment, but being able to communicate if there is an issue that's going on, within your department, or anything. If you have concerns about, let's just say like your pay, or you want to have those tough conversations. The only way to really achieve that is to have those conversations, and just understand that it will be okay at the end of everything. It's like I said, for me personally, I've had events such as this one before, and nerves and things like that definitely kick in. But really just realizing that everything will be okay, and it'll all be a learning experience, especially for you guys as well as myself, starting off relatively young in my career too.
Absolutely. I mean, when we think about riding a bike, you start off wobbly and
Mhm.
you fall down and then you become an expert on your bike. It's the same with careers, young people. You start off and you learn and you learn, and
Mhm.
it all works out. You can't know it all in advance. That's just part of the journey, is to
Yes,
learn along. And if you don't like it, then you can always make changes, right?
exactly.
Um, and it sounds like you're liking things right now, so that's fantastic.
Yes.
What kind of technology do they use in your type of work as a recruiter?
So as of right now, we are doing a pretty big transition with a lot of our like software and things like that. So right now we're using like Microsoft Teams. We usually use something called Talent Connection, which is where a lot of our, resumes and, pretty much everyone's information is housed. But at the start of the new year, we are switching over to a different platform. So actually this week we're doing a lot of training. And this is another thing, for, young professionals and young individuals is to be very flexible. For me, I'm not used to really learning at home, but obviously due to COVID, I mean, everyone's situations have been changing drastically. So for me, I've really learned to be very flexible in, my learning experiences and, really, like I said, just trying to really, really be flexible and work with the teammates that you have.
Yeah, I've definitely become more flexible through COVID.
Mhm.
I've learned to
Yes.
just kind of roll with things a little differently than I had before. And
Mhm.
I hope that I can keep that because I think that's a positive
Mhm.
thing. So you
Yes.
use these softwares, like you say, when people apply for jobs, they put all their information in these softwares, and that comes to you on the back end where you start to just kind of screen them and start to sort out. Um, and then you have to work with a hiring manager, like you said, to kind of get more specifics and work with them.
Correct.
When young people, let's just give them a little bit of inside tip uh, as they start to apply for jobs. What would you want them to know about that system? Do's and don'ts. Like, do they have to attach a resume, or can they get through that with just filling out some of the form part?
Yes. So, some big tips and tricks that I would say, just from trying to get a position, is really paying attention to the resume. For me personally, and I know a lot of our recruiters within Spectrum Health do this as well, is if you have a resume, we like to really look over it. We really look to try and just get it down to one page with your most like important things. And as far as your previous work experience, we're really looking for like the last 3 jobs. I know that obviously starting off in your career, if it's only 1 or 2 jobs, that is completely fine. For me, that's kind of how my resume looks, so it'll definitely be fine. But like I said, really just paying attention to that. Grammatical errors are another thing that we really, really pay attention to. So all of the software, such as like Microsoft Word and everything, they have like grammar tools. So definitely utilize them and make sure that everything flows well. And for when it's time to come to the interview, just really be prepared and really come with a lot of questions as well. I can kind of speak for a lot of recruiters is we do so many interviews a day and we definitely like to be able to see exactly what you're looking for, so if you apply for a certain position, tell us a little bit about, why specifically are you looking to work in this position at our company too. So I think those are big things that go a long way.
Yeah, and I've heard that. Oh, my home phone's ringing. I'm sorry if you don't hear that. The recruiters really like at the end when you say, "Do you have any questions?" And when an interview says no, that's a really big bummer. So if
Yes.
anything, the kids ask some questions at the end, even if you ask them, how do you like working at that company?
Yes, yes.
So
One of the biggest things that I've seen, and it's just more general questions that I've received at the end of interviews is, what is the culture like within your department? So that is a big question. Another big question is, what is the day-to-day responsibilities in this position? I think those are the two biggest questions, and I think that kind of fills out for every position that you apply to is like I said, just go in there with 2 to 3 questions that you'll like to ask them and really go in there with a positive attitude and really look to be professional, but also have a general conversation with them. For me personally, when I go into interviews, if I talk to someone and I hear that they brought up, anything about basketball. I'm a big basketball fan. So, I'll say, hey, did you watch the game last night? Or things like that to kind of ease the conversation. So it's not just, you're trying to run through the motions and make sure and things like that, definitely just have a general conversation.
I hear that's just one of the best tips is that
Yes.
you are, as a recruiter, are a regular person And for them
Yes.
to, it's a conversation to not get so nervous where
Mhm,
just you forget that it's a real person on the other side, and they just want to know if you're going to be the right fit for this. That's their
mhm.
goal, and it just doesn't have to be more scary than it really is.
Yes, yes.
Um, recruitment, what kind of is this something that's a lot of stress on you? Is it kind of a slow paced job? I know that can be a characteristic that young people need to consider if they kind of like even pace. Some people like pressure from busyness. What is being a recruiter like for you?
Yes. So I think everything as far as recruitment goes comes in volumes. So for me, usually I'll have a lot of interviews booked, for a week, and then that following week it'll be primarily the managers working through those interviews as well, because usually we have, two different interviews to see if you'll be the right fit, and usually that's how it goes. Was there a second part to the question? Sorry.
No, it's fine. I just wondered, like, is it stressful? Like, do you have like, I got to fill these 50 jobs this week or 100 jobs this week? Is there a lot of pressure, or is it not really play out like that?
Yeah, so it really depends on the timing. For me personally, obviously starting off, pretty young in my career, this has probably been the busiest I've ever been. And it's just because of the field. Working in healthcare right now and working during COVID, I've definitely been blessed to be able to still have the opportunity to work during these hard times. But also recruiting for nurses and nurse technicians and things of that nature, it has been a little bit harder just because obviously individuals don't want to work, in a hospital setting with COVID patients. So that has been something that, we've realized as recruiters that's been a little bit tough. So, things from the back end, we've, kind of fixed our pay. So we raised pay during these hard times and, things like that. So it's really allowed us to still be able to recruit. But like I said, this has probably been the hardest time because we're doing a lot of digging. So things have really kicked up now.
Yeah, I've heard that there's just severe shortages in some of those roles, and
Yes.
that it is hard to find people right now. So that does
Yes.
have to be a certain level of stress, I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, is there anything you don't like about your job, Austin, that you want kids to
Um,
know about? It's not always rosy.
yes. So for me, I think that as of right now, I think working from home so much is the one thing that I don't really enjoy too much now. Before COVID, we did have the opportunity to work from home as much as we would like, so it was a great option. And usually, I was working from home like 2 to 3 days a week, but I still love to be able to go into the office, 2 to 3 days a week as well, and be able to really, partner with my peers and, just run different ideas, whether that's different recruitment strategies or just having a general conversation in the hallway. The water cooler talk, you guys will learn about that a lot later, but just those general conversations definitely go, a far way from a mental perspective as well.
Yeah, because so much of that is our work, that we build relationships with our colleagues and,
Yes.
get to know each other. And so, yeah, when we're stuck at home, which as you can see, I am too, it's been a little brutal, you know.
Yes.
Um, it's tough. So if a student's thinking, man, I like the idea of hiring people and having that ability to change someone's life, like you say, with a new role. What would be some of the first steps that you would recommend? Are there certain undergrad degrees? Is it like kind of flexible? Do some of your colleagues have different types of background? And, what kind of would be some first steps for them to pursue this?
Yes. So um, I think that one of the first steps that you can take is to start practicing with, interviews and see if you really like it. So for me, before I really started to get into the recruitment world, I kind of sat down with, some individuals and I just interviewed them, and really tried to decipher if I would really like to do this, day in and day out. Because like I said, with any job, there are going to be things that you're going to be doing over and over, and you have to enjoy them. So I think that that was the biggest thing for me, as well as in schooling, go into, if you want to really get into recruitment, I would go into business, and really just take general classes too. Because, like I said, it's not just specifically made for human resource management majors. I do have a colleague that majored in Spanish, and then I have another colleague, or sorry, not a colleague, but my manager, like I said, she wanted to be a teacher. So we're all coming from different walks of life. And I think that, working in recruitment allows you to really realize that, hey, we don't all go into the same thing, but we can all kind of accomplish, a bigger goal, which is to be able to make sure that, everyone, as far as, COVID, no COVID, making sure that all of our patients are safe.
So one of the favorite parts of my job is doing these interviews. So maybe that's my next gig, just to transfer that over to recruitment.
Yes, come join the team.
Yeah, I think there's so much that our fields have in common as far as being a career developer. I'm working with young people to help them figure it out, but obviously you work with people around careers too. So there probably is so much that's very transferable. Does Spectrum provide the training? So for example, your manager who was trained to be a teacher, when you get hired, do they provide them more training to teach you how to do some of the work?
Yes. So I think that, and I can really only speak for Spectrum Health since this has really been like my only job in the real world so far.
Yeah.
But I think that as far as training goes, for me, I pretty much had it all laid out for me when I first started. I got a pretty big book. So guys, just remember that reading does not stop when you get out of school, but I had a pretty big book. And I kind of just ran through it. And when I was in the office, I would always just reach out to, my colleague sitting next to me, and I would ask him a general question. One thing that I will stress too is there's no such thing as a dumb question. I think that a lot of, that is like a mindset for a lot of individuals. And I think that, if you have a question, make sure that it's answered, so then you can kind of move on to the next step and continue to grow. That is one thing for me personally that I had to learn. I'm more on the quiet side of things. So really, when I got an opportunity to ask questions, it pushed me out of my comfort zone to be able to really grow and expand. And like I said, that kind of goes for recruitment, if you decide to go into healthcare or, sports, fitness, anything that you decide to go into, asking those questions is going to go far.
I think that's such an important recommendation, because I think sometimes as young people, we look at the adults and think, man, they have it all figured out. And when I get there, I don't know. And I have to hide that I don't know it, and no, it's part of learning. It's okay to ask questions. You're encouraged to ask questions. It's how we learn. So even in high school, young people, don't feel like you have it all figured out. Just ask people. I'm very good at that. When I go to something new, if I'm at a restaurant and I don't understand, I'll ask that server, like, tell me more about that special, because they're the expert in that food. So why would I pretend I know what that is? No, tell me all about it, or a certain wine, right? Like let their expertise shine. So it's a good lesson in life, I think, in general.
Yes.
So our time is finishing up. It's 1:30 already, Austin. Didn't it go fast?
Oh my, that was super fast. Yes.
So I'm going to give you just a few seconds to think about just kind of a final word of wisdom. I'm going to share with the young people a resource that I think is really helpful as they start to investigate some of these jobs, especially under the business umbrella, because a lot of young people tell me they want to go into business, but what does that really mean, right? And so ONET Online, young people, is a great resource. It's a federal website that has all sorts of career information. So that's the address, onetonline.org. And I took a screenshot. So I put recruiter right into the search bar. And these are all different similar related type titles that have characteristics. And as you see, that education does fall in here, because there are very much transferable things between human resources and education. And so based on this tool, so you can then click on these and learn about, how much money do they make and what kind of education, and is this a growing field? So all sorts of really great career information on ONET Online. And then I don't know if I confirmed this, Austin, is it okay that people follow up with you? I meant to ask you that before we got started.
Oh yeah, feel free to reach out. Yes.
Okay. I can edit this out if the answer was no. So Austin Willis at spectrumhealth.org. If you are a young person who has a follow-up question for Austin, especially even, being a person of color at Grand Valley, like you say, it's very different on Oakland versus coming to West Michigan, and just how you navigated some of those experiences. Young people might want to have a role model around that as well. So there's his email for you. And then again, I'm Krista Harmon at kentisd.org. We have more career chats coming up in the new year. And so you can find all of our career chats at careerreadiness.kentisd.org. So don't hesitate to reach out. So isn't it weird that you're a role model, that you're a career mentor? Is that just 2 years into your career? So what would you like young high school students to know as we finish up?
So the biggest thing that I would like to stress enough is really stepping out of your comfort zone. I think, like I said, for me, and now really looking at it as we're having this conversation, throughout my career, the only times that I really got a chance to experience a lot of growth is when I stepped out of my comfort zone. So not just being used to, the east side of the state and, just going to Oakland and things of that nature. I kind of stepped out, like I said, really didn't know too many people out in Grand Rapids. So it allowed me to really focus on, what I wanted to do. So for me personally, I wanted to kind of focus on, getting in shape. So I was able to, utilize a lot of my time to be able to go to the GVSU gym. And as far as like studying skills, I got an opportunity to really realize that studying in my dorm was not for me, because there's a lot of distractions. So for me, I would just go to the library and I would stay there for 3-4 hours and I wouldn't leave until, I finished my assignments. So, for me, like I said, really stepping out of your comfort zone and just trying new things. And if it doesn't work, that's 100% okay. You have that option to be able to change things up. And I think that's the good thing about, us being, in our positions, is that we have, the flexibility to change things up if it's not working for us.
Yeah, I hope that gives kids a peace of mind that you're not picking something that you're going to do for the rest of your life. It's just really, for the most professions, that's not the way it works. Yes, if you're a teacher or perhaps a doctor, you're kind of committing. But even teacher, there's flexibility for sure. Maybe a dentist, right? If you're a dentist, there's probably not a lot of transferable. But, well, thank you so much for your time today, Austin. I really appreciate our conversation.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. And like I said, I appreciate the opportunity again.